It is my pleasure to introduce our next esteemed speaker, Dr. Nishi Bhatt. Dr. Bhatt is a leading doctor in the emerging field of holistic and neurological treatments involving Ayurveda, naturopathy, and various healing modalities. I now invite Ms. Tejal Patrikar, who is the coordinator for music department at MAV, to felicitate Dr. Nishi Bhatt. I invite Dr. Bhatt to share her vision of how Nadi Yoga can help people with neurological conditions regain their autonomy.
Hello, good afternoon. So, sir, we were talking about Panch Bhuta, and I think most of them are on the fourth Bhuta already. And if they receive the fifth Bhuta, they will all be with the spirituality and they will be on their topmost health, right? So, coming to the topic that we are discussing today at G20, C20 event, I think inclusivity, we talk about people, we talk about everyone, we talk about a lot of things, but we forget that there is a part of our society that has been kept hidden from us a lot of times, and those are the children with neurodiversity. When I grew up as a child, I had a cousin who was mentally retarded, as what they used to say the word at that time, and they still use that word very openly. And I used to never see him at the functions. Their parents would never bring them to any of the rituals that would take place in any of the household. It's as if they have a pet, an unwanted pet. But then I realized that it's not the fault of the parent as such. So when we have created a society which refuse to see people as who they are, but we see what they can't do, and that's where our issues are, that's where we fall behind. We've been constantly told that that's what we need to be, is perfect. And somebody who's not perfect is not part of the society. And that's where we are lacking. So this is a wonderful event where I would say that G20 has brought in the inclusivity, diversity, and mutual respect. But do we really know the meaning? That is one of my biggest concerns, is that we are talking about it, but we don't know the meaning of it. Nobody knows how to use it in a practical manner. I think from today morning, we've been listening about inclusivity, we're talking about diversity, and we're talking about mutual respect, but I haven't seen many diverse people on this bench. Okay, so this is something that we need to. There should be a person with a wheelchair. There should be a person with intelligence who has neurodegenerative effect, but they have something to share. They have a different perspective to life, to the problems that could be solved within few months or within few weeks, because they could connect dots that we would never be able to do so. And this is where I work with. I am from London myself, and I was doing occupational therapy, and that's where I took my specialization, was to work with children and adults with neurodiversity. Now, even there, I recognize the problem that whatever happens to the body does not just happen on physical level. there is more to what the brain can experience. A mother can experience when the son or daughter is in danger about 4,000, 5,000 miles away. Can somebody explain how that works? It doesn't, because we yet have to define what really connects every human being to each other. So I'm going to just talk about certain things and to understand what I work with. So when I started working in my field, I realized that there were shortcomings in the medical sector, and that's where I was not happy. So I came down in 2015, and I ended up at Ma Ganga Tat. And I knew that my journey was supposed to start into something that even I had no idea what it's going to lead me into. I met a saint, and she told me, just sit next to me, because she knew where I wanted to go. And she looked into my eyes, and somehow I was flying. I don't know how many of you have experienced that, where a guru gives their energy to you. A lot of you have, right? So you would experience like as if you are in a completely different dimension, and you will be crying over things which you thought that never you would have ever cried on. You would experience the touch that you would have never experienced. You would experience the taste that you had never experienced. So when I started working with individuals with neurodiversity and challenges, I could see an energy which was blocked. And there were many things that could be done to help them out. And it wasn't something that a medical doctor would be able to do, because a medical doctor doesn't know how to diagnose those kind of energies. Because they even stopped looking at the pulses. Before, the doctors used to look at the pulse. They could recognize the energy when they're diagnosing. Now, the modern doctors don't even know how to diagnose a pulse. You are sent to a radiology department, you'd be sent to all these different diagnostic tests that needs to be done, and they would believe whatever the test says. So when you start doing that, you are definitely cutting the contact between the patient and the doctor. When you touch an individual, that body talks to you. If you are truly a doctor, if you look at one of the biggest surgeons, if you look at one of the best doctors, they know how to interpret your body, your signs, your language. So when you start seeing that, you automatically know what to do with the patient. So when I work with child who has cerebral palsy is when a trauma happens to a child, either prenatal or neonatal. So prenatal is before the birth and then after the birth. So it could be anything. It could be the blood pressure that would have gone down of the mother. It could be the stress level of the mother. It could be that the child has some form of degenerative issues or genetic issues. So when we are talking about cerebral palsy again, you would see an individual where the body is completely tight. Yeah? Have you seen any children like that? Where their body is completely tight, they can't move around, they can't sleep properly, they can't eat properly. Can you believe, just with 3 months of treatment, of natural Nadi Yoga treatment, those children, they are completely normalized? But unfortunately, in hospitals, they are told again and again, the parents are told again and again that your child is going to stay the same for rest of their lives. The same child I have treated in just 3 to 6 months, where they're able to walk, they're able to eat, they're able to sleep, and do everything that another normal child can do. Same with autism. Now, autism is made to be such a big thing in this century. But it is not. Autism is what and how we reflect towards the child. If I have met an autistic child, I've met the parent of the autistic child who are worse than the autistic child themselves. It's something that what your behavior carries in you, you pass it on to that child. Because if during pregnancy, if you are hyper, you eating food which are completely full of sugar, full of all the products which are preservatives, obviously the brain of the child is not going to be stabilized. So when they are born, they're born with neurodiversity where they think completely different because they're not balanced. But when we start working with the autistic child or ASD child, we have seen within a year the diagnosis comes out as just behavioral disorder. The doctor says, I don't know how this has happened, that they moved from autism, severe autism, to just behavioral disorder, and most of them will say, oh, the diagnosis was incorrect. This is where the inclusion that we need to bring into our holistic health has to come in, where we have to include the other perspective of medicines, the other perspective of health, where we were never imbalanced. We were always balanced. But unfortunately, when we keep on saying to somebody that you are imbalanced, we automatically, our body hears it. Our DNA then starts acting accordingly, and then it becomes imbalanced. The recent study in neurogeneration, they have said, they used to say before that the brain cells can never be regenerated. And now, the new studies, they said that the brain cells can be regenerated with just the thought. So what our ancient rishis used to say to us, that just our thought can create the world, has come true with the new genesis reports that are coming out. So when we are talking again, can we have the next one? So when we talk about mutual respect, I was going to actually bring 4 or 5 people on this stage and actually explain what it is to be inclusive, because I find that has been no practical example of what it is like to be inclusive or how it has been stayed out. So say you are a group of 5 people, okay? And we say every person is different, yeah? So every 5 person is different, and then there's one person out of those 5 who's always left out, yeah? They are existing in that 5, the group of 5, they are there, their name is there, but their ideas, their viewpoints, what they feel about that is never asked. And that's what neurodiversity faces every day. People like us, people like you and me, we make decisions for them. That's what they want. But we never discuss it with them, neither do we have the patience to sit with them and say, okay, how do you want this to be done? And a lot of times we will find that the answer is there and they want to communicate with you. Maybe their communication method is different. We need to bring in our society these inclusivity where we need to understand, okay, how do I interpret this? If there is an autistic child, we need to know how to understand the behavior, why the child is acting in the way that he's acting or she's acting. You can't just start hitting the child and you expect that the child won't hit back to you. And then when that child hit back to you, you say, oh, it's gone worse. But in fact, you are the one who taught them to mirror. You are the one who taught them how to not to stay in structure, How many of us has actually planned their day when they start their day? Nobody does. I think about 80% of us have never structured their day of what they're going to do in the day, but we expect our child to do that. And it's very sad that we're trying to have something out of our child that we don't do it ourselves. And when they don't follow through, we say they have behavioral disorder. So I would say a lot of it is reflected of our society in our next generation that is coming. Before, there was 10 in 1 child that had some form of mental illness. And now it's 1 in 3. And that's quite a high number. You would be able to, now it's easily seen. You can easily talk about it. Oh, yes, he's autistic. Oh, yes, that person has seizures. Oh, that before, they never used to have that many rates. They never had so many cases. So these are the things that we need to reflect on when we are talking about inclusions. We're talking about diversity. Diversity doesn't mean just to have a chair or having that space and just sitting there and just listening to us. It means that their ideas, their perspective has to be seen, has to be observed, has to be visualized. If you look at that movie, My Name is Khan, right? An actor, you don't need to take a normal actor and make them look like an ASD person. You can take somebody who is suffering from them and then let them tell you the story. Why are we waiting for a superstar to tell a story of an autistic person or ASD person? Because they will never be able to tell their part fairly. So we need to change the way we look at these children, the way we look at, because that is going to be our future. Our future is going to be children who are going to be sitting in the chair for more than 12 to 15 hours in the day. And the legs and the hands that are working today like what we do, within next 50 years, it's only the brain that is going to be useful for the companies that are going to hire them. Their legs and hands are not going to be very useful. If you would have heard the latest news of Elon Musk, they're going to put a computer chip in the brain. So they don't need to use your hands. They're just going to put a chip in your brain, and they're going to take the ideas from the brain itself, and they're going to control the brain. And you can't run away from that. So that's why the wellness industry, we need to understand that neurodiversity or neuro challenges are something that we need to really think about, or why our next generation of children are so weak. It's not about just what we look like. It's not about just balance. It's not about just controlling the environment around you. It is about the future. If every child is put on a high dosage of opium, which is an illegal drug, but the neuro drugs are full of opiums, and it's a legalized drug. So imagine if 50% of opium is going to the brain of the child, how is that child going to perform? I was working with a patient in US, New York, and she had bipolar disorder. Can you imagine, for 25 years she was getting 2,000 ml of lithium? And lithium is a poison. It's not something that you just take it. And her whole body was in tremors. She is one of the most richest lady in New York, and it was no use for her because the only place that she was sitting in was her chair. She could not dress, she could not drink water. All the beautiful dresses that she has in the wardrobe is just lying there. I gave her a treatment for 7 days. and all her tremors reduced to only, it came down to only 25% tremors. And the second day, she came to me, to New Jersey where I was staying, and she came with a beautiful dress, a summer dress. Her hair was done, and she's coming and she's saying to me, I want to take you to the New Jersey shores. And her husband could not believe, because he has not seen this for last 25 years. She didn't know that she had 2 kids, twins. And she started realizing that I have a family, I have an existence apart from that. So yes, what these drugs do is they cut off your emotions, they cut off your attachment to your body. And that's what your future is going to lie. If you have seen the Kerala story, if you would have seen how the drugs are used to manipulate your children in today's schools and colleges and boarding schools, you would understand what is actually being used to manipulate the brain. It is nothing wrong is with your child. It is the system that is raising your child to be disconnected from your family, so that they could add the views and point of views according to what they want to teach you or teach your children. So the way we work with Nadi Yoga is that we have certain stimulations that we do. Like if you a lot of you would have heard about vagus nerve stimulation. It's quite, a lot of reels are made of vagus nerve. Now what does vagus nerve do? It's even used during surgery. If somebody's heartbeat slows down or their BP goes down, the doctors will always stimulate the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve falls on the left side, okay? So if you look at this, you can do it to your child, okay? So whenever you feel that your child's memory is not working, or they're not concentrating, they're not focusing, or you yourself, before going on the stage, I was doing that sitting there because my heartbeat was like, ooh, this is something which is, I'm getting a little bit of a nervous breakdown. So what I do is I go on the left side and I go the back over here. Can you see me, everyone? So I go over here and I tap it around 40 times. You can start doing it. Anyone who's feeling a little nauseous or feeling, kind of bored. So you can tap it 40 times and then you stroke it down like that. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So there are different counts. This is only for having somebody who would have nervous breakdown or have fright, anxiety issues. Okay, a lot of children today has that because they have like a phobo thing where if they can't attend something, they start having nervous breakdown. If they can't have something, a phone, and they will start having a nervous breakdown. So when you start stimulating these areas, there are different counts in your body that controls different hormones. And if you just do that, you won't even need your child to meditate. You just have to do these different counts and they will be stabilized. They will become focused right in the middle of the exam. A lot of them, they know everything and it just goes blank. The brain just goes blank. A lot of us, we do that, right? When we have to stand on this stage or when we have to perform, suddenly all the brain goes blank. This is the count that helps you to increase the memory. Many of my patients have these issues and the child is getting around 30% in their exams, and once they start doing that, the child has 75%. Okay, so 75% for somebody who's getting 98% is like, oh, it's only 75%. But somebody who's just passing through, who's getting 75%, is a huge thing. So I would say that during this age of bio competition, okay, during the different phases of our lives, we are not the same person. Our brain is not the same when we started off as a child, and we're not going to be the same person after 2 hours or 1 hour. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why the neuroscience is not able to conclude what to do with people who have seizures, have cerebral palsy, but we do. People who work with spirituality, people who work with natural treatments, they do. But it is now time to include diversity, inclusion, and mutual respect with people who were never represented in our history, in the present, and also, but I would wish that in the future, we are using the brain, the intellectuality of each and every individual so that nobody misses out. Nobody is kept in the corner and just to make watch to the other people. Thank you so much.